When I first saw the boy, I knew, not in some vague, mystical sense. No, it was a physical jolt, like a punch to the lungs, like the universe slammed the air right out of me. He had his father's eyes, the exact same hazel gold ring around the pupils, that same stubborn cowlick that refused to sit flat. And when he smiled, God, it was like watching a ghost breathe. My dead fiance's smile. I was standing in the middle of a crowded art showcase for children's charities. I had no business being there, other than that my company was sponsoring the event and I needed to be seen. I was 3 years into a new life, a new name, a new everything. But the second that boy looked up at me from behind his paper mache sculpture, all of it cracked. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, because I knew exactly what he was, my son. And he wasn't supposed to exist. I remember the antiseptic sting in the air, that sterile, metallic stillness of a clinic after hours, when the staff lower their voices and everything smells like something being erased. I remember my best friend, Min Seo, squeezing my hand and telling me it would be over quickly. "You're doing the right thing," she said, eyes shimmering with concern. "You need closure. This will help you move on." It was supposed to be just a simple consultation. They told me I was dehydrated, exhausted, grieving, that maybe a mild sedative would help before the egg retrieval. But when I woke up the next day, I wasn't sore. I wasn't stitched. I wasn't anything. Just empty. And they told me there'd been a mix-up. My procedure had been rescheduled, postponed due to a lab error. They apologized. Minseo took me home, made me soup, and tucked a blanket around me like a sister would. I didn't know it then, but in the hours I'd been unconscious, Minseo had stolen my future. My name is, or was, Lee Jinhua. At 29, I had just buried my fiancé. His name was Kang Jun Seok, and he'd been everything. Steady and kind in ways that made people underestimate him. The kind of man who held umbrellas for strangers and paid attention when you said you hated lilies. We had planned for a baby. One embryo, frozen before his cancer treatments, kept safe in a private clinic vault. A month after his funeral, I finally decided to use it. I wasn't ready to move on, but I wasn't ready to let him go either. The embryo was hope. It was grief in a future tense. It was mine. And then, just like that, it was gone. I didn't find out for years, not until the night I saw that little boy, 3 years old with a stormy pout I knew better than my own reflection. He had Yoon Seok's eyes, the same sharp inner fold of the left eyelid, the same stubborn shape to his lower lip. He was mine, but that night I didn't know that yet. I only knew I couldn't breathe. Back then, I trusted Minseo with everything. She'd been my roommate in university, the maid of honor at our engagement party, the one who held my hair while I sobbed into toilet bowls after the chemo appointments. She was the friend who never asked for anything, until she asked to come with me to the clinic. "I just want to be there for you," she said, like always. She even handled the forms when my hands were shaking too much. She told the nurse I was having panic attacks. She insisted on staying in the room while I was sedated. What I didn't know was that she'd come prepared, with forged signatures, a bribe for the nurse on night shift, and a second patient file. Minseo had been trying to get pregnant for years. Her husband, Seojin, came from one of those old money families who wanted a son more than they wanted a daughter-in-law, and she, Minseo, couldn't give them one. So she took mine. I started to suspect something months after the clinic incident. There were rumors that Minseo was pregnant, but she never told me. She ghosted me slowly. One day it was unanswered texts. Then it was canceled lunches. Then her number just stopped working. I was still recovering from the grief, from the lie they told me at that clinic, and I didn't have the energy to chase her. I tried once. I showed up at her building. The doorman told me she'd moved to a larger flat uptown. I wasn't on the guest list. Eventually, I let her go. I moved cities, changed careers, threw myself into work. I told myself people grow apart, that not everyone is meant to stay. But grief has a long memory, and betrayal even longer. I only learned the truth when I came back 3 years later under a different name. I wasn't Jinhua anymore. That woman had died in a fire, along with her reputation. framed for a corporate crime I didn't commit, dragged through the media by Seojin's legal team until I had nothing left. But I survived. I rebuilt myself with new documents, a new voice, a new face even. I studied bioethics. I got into advocacy. I learned the laws surrounding embryo consent and patient rights better than any lawyer on the circuit. And I came back as Jin Yon, a public speaker, a biotech whistleblower, and the last person Min Seo ever expected to see again. When I saw her on the panel list for the Global Women's Health Summit, I thought it was a mistake. What did she have to do with women's health? The answer was a son. Her speech was on resilience and IVF. She stood there, glowing in a white dress, holding up a slideshow of her 3-year-old boy, smiling through gap teeth and finger paint. The moment his photo hit the screen, I dropped my glass. Because I knew that face. That was Jun Seok's son. That was my embryo. That was my child. The boy's face stayed with me all night. I kept seeing his eyes, wide and bright on the conference screen, squinting slightly like Jun Seok used to when he was trying not to cry. His smile tilted to the left, too. Same as his father's. And his name, God, I can't forget it, Ha-jun. Min Seo had named him Ha-jun. She kept the Jun in his name, like it was a souvenir. A secret monument to the man she stole from me. From both of us. I hadn't spoken to her in years. But now, I couldn't stop replaying her voice on that panel, the way she cooed when showing his baby photos. He's our little miracle, she said, born after years of heartbreak. IVF is truly a blessing. She didn't even flinch. My hand hovered over the call button 3 nights in a row before I dialed the clinic's old number. Disconnected, of course. So I contacted my legal consultant, a quiet woman named Rena who specialized in fertility law and data recovery. She'd worked with me before when I started my advocacy nonprofit. Let me guess, Rena said, sipping from a giant mug that said burn contracts, not bridges. You want me to trace an IVF record from 4 years ago with no subpoena, no original name, and no surviving paperwork. You're not wrong, I said. She narrowed her eyes. You want to tell me why? Because I think someone used my embryos while I was unconscious, and the child is alive. That made her sit up. I'll need anything you remember, staff names, doctors, anyone who might have been in the room. There was a nurse, I said slowly. Short hair, tattoos. I think her name was Yuna. I'll find her. Thank you. I was about to hang up when I said, Rena? Yeah? If this is real, I want proof before I go to war. She looked right at me through the screen. You've been at war since the day you came back. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, I received a file in an encrypted folder. Inside were recovered personnel logs, nurse shift data, and a heavily redacted internal memo from a now-defunct private lab chain. But one sentence wasn't redacted. Embryo ID #2117A. Subject, Lee Jinhua removed under supervision of alternate patient ID, Min Seo K. Shin, June 12, 2022. I stared at that line until the letters blurred. She hadn't just taken my future. She'd signed her name on it. I found her again at a children's fundraiser of all places. She was dressed in white again, always white, like she was afraid the stain would show otherwise. Her husband, Seojin, stood beside her with practiced smiles and stiff posture. They looked good together, I'll give them that. A perfect couple from a glossy lifestyle blog. And then there was him, Ha-jun. He was playing with finger paint and paper fans at the art station. A smear of blue streaked across his cheek like a war stripe. I waited until Min Seo was alone at the drink table. Then I walked up and said, Funny, you never liked kids before. She turned so slowly I thought she hadn't heard me, and then she froze. Her wine glass trembled. I'm sorry. Have we met? I smiled, tight and sharp. No, not officially. She blinked. I'm afraid I don't. You were always a good liar, I said. But I wonder, do you lie to him too? Excuse me. The boy. Does he know where he really came from? She paled. I don't know what you're insinuating. You do. I leaned in. And I think your husband would be very interested to know. Her eyes darted around. You need to leave. Relax, I whispered. I'm not here to make a scene, but I will be in touch. Before she could stop me, I turned and walked over to the art table. Hajun looked up, smiling like he'd known me forever. Hi, he said. Hi, I said, crouching beside him. What are you making? A dragon, he beamed. It's blue because it's sad. That's a good color for sadness, I said. He nodded. My mommy says boys aren't supposed to cry, but I don't think that's fair. I smiled. My throat ached. No, that's not fair at all. His paper was sticky with glue and colored fingerprints. I gently reached for the edge to steady it. And just like that, I had what I needed. A fingerprint. A sample. You're a really good artist, I said. Thanks, what's your name? I hesitated, then said, Jin Yon. He tilted his head. That's pretty. Thank you, Hajun. His eyes widened. How do you know my name? I smiled gently. Your mom said it earlier. Oh, right. He turned back to his drawing. Want to help me color the sky? I almost said yes. I wanted to stay, but I couldn't, not yet. Next time, I said. Okay? Rena ran the DNA test in-house. It was clean. No legal chain of custody, yet, but airtight enough to move forward. She didn't even need to say it. She just held out the report. Probability of maternity, 99.98%. I dropped into the chair. There it was. Proof, undeniable, clinical, but also, there was a child. My child. Living 3 blocks from the woman who ruined my life. And he didn't know me. Not yet. He shows up at my cafe the next week. Not alone. He's clutching his nanny's hand, tugging her toward the pastry counter with the clumsy enthusiasm of a small boy who's never been told no. His eyes light up at the strawberry danishes, and before I can stop myself, I'm walking toward them. I didn't plan it. I never expected to see him again this soon. But the universe is unkindly theatrical. He presses his nose to the glass. Excuse me, I say, keeping my voice gentle, my smile neutral. Would he like something? The nanny looks up, surprised. She's young, maybe 20, and visibly stressed. I'm so sorry, he's obsessed with sugar, she says. But we weren't supposed to stop here. His mom... I'll cover it, I say, waving her off. He can pick one. Hajun beams. Really? He says. Can I have the red one? Of course, I say. 1 red Danish coming up. The nanny hesitates. I don't think his parents. It's on the house, I repeat. I own the place. Oh, then thank you. I slide the pastry into a warm paper bag, then kneel to Hajun's height and hand it to him directly. He takes it with reverence. You're nice, he says. Are you famous? I laugh. No, why do you ask? Because you look like someone important. I blink. Do you think that's a good thing? I ask. He shrugs. Depends. Important people don't always listen. The nanny laughs awkwardly. Hajun. No, it's okay, I say, still watching him. That's a smart observation. He's wearing a hoodie with a cartoon lion and tiny light-up shoes. A red marker stain on his sleeve. He smells like strawberry soap and paper glue. He's a child. Just a child. And yet my hands shake when I touch the edge of the counter. Do you come here often? I ask. He nods. Sometimes. My mommy likes the coffee with the heart on top. She says she used to come here before I was born. I go very still. She did, I say carefully. Yeah, with a friend named Ginny. She said Ginny disappeared. The nanny flinches. That's enough. But I'm already frozen, Ginny. That was her name for me. Back when we were girls who thought forever meant something. I smile faintly. That's a pretty name. She said Ginny was her best friend, Hajun adds. But then Ginny got sick and went away. Sick, I repeat. Yeah, she said some people get so sad they turn invisible. My throat tightens. Did she now? He nods. But I think Ginny came back. She's just hiding. I look at him, really look. It's like looking through a time-locked mirror. I see myself. I see Jun Sok, and I see none of her. I lean back, trying to breathe. I hope, I say softly, that if Ginny is back, she's not hiding because she's afraid. He munches the corner of the Danish and tilts his head. Why would she be afraid? The nanny checks her watch. We really need to go. Your dad's expecting you. Dad, my stomach coils. Of course, I say, standing up. Thanks for stopping by? Hajun waves, mouthful of jam. Bye, Miss Ginny's friend. That night, I sit at my desk with the audio file playing back. I recorded it, the conversation, just in case. Every word makes me ache. He's not just a file or a test result anymore. He's a boy who loves dragons and tells the truth too easily. I send the audio to Rena with a note. We move forward, quietly. I want legal custody, or I want them exposed. She replies in 10 minutes. We'll need leverage. Their marriage might give us that. Especially if he thinks the boy is his. 2 days later, I get my chance. I see Seojin at a business gala. He's standing under a chandelier that probably costs more than my apartment. He looks bored, polished, hollow. I walk straight up to him. He doesn't recognize me at first. Most people don't. Excuse me, I say. Do you know your wife had a child using someone else's embryo? His glass pauses midair. He turns slowly like he heard wrong. Who the hell are you? I hold out the DNA test, sealed and stamped. He doesn't take it, not at first. I think you should read this. You need to leave. It's about your son. Now he takes it. His eyes scan the numbers, the matches, the probabilities. His hand tightens on the folder. What is this? It's proof, I say. He's not yours, and he's not hers either. What the fuck? I'm his biological mother, I say, quiet and clear. And I never gave her permission. His face drains. Get out. I will, but you should ask her. Ask her how she got pregnant while her best friend was unconscious. He looks like he might hit me. Instead, he storms away. I exhale. Rena was right. The cracks are already there. That night, Minseo calls me. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Her voice is jagged. What do you want? You already know. You've ruined everything. I laugh. No. You ruined everything when you decided my grief was your opportunity. I was desperate. You were selfish. He's mine now, she snaps. I carried him. I raised him. You have no claim. I smile coldly. Let's ask the court. You think a judge will give you custody? Maybe not full custody, but the public? They'll know, and so will your precious in-laws. She's silent. Then she says quieter. Please, don't do this to him. He doesn't know. Then start preparing him, because I'm not going away this time. Minseo didn't open the door right away. I waited, listening to the soft mechanical sound of her security panel humming behind the sleek modern steel. This building had a private elevator and soundproofed hallways, the kind of place where silence cost extra. I'd always thought it ironic that people who lived in glass-walled penthouses liked their privacy the most. When the door finally clicked, she stepped out just enough to block the gap. She looked different in daylight. Not ethereal, not unreachable like she'd been at the gala or the fundraiser. Now she looked tired. Skin too tight across her cheekbones, as if she hadn't been eating. Her lipstick was smudged at one corner, her blouse ironed but misbuttoned. She hadn't been expecting anyone, least of all me. What do you want? Her voice was low and sharp, like she was bracing for something to fall. I told you, I said, stepping past her before she could stop me. We need to talk. She followed me inside, her bare feet soundless on the cold marble. The apartment was as cold and perfect as I remembered. Glass, chrome, the smell of white lilies curling in a tall vase like twisted lies. There were framed photos on the sideboard. One of them was a family portrait. Hajun stood between Minseo and Seojin, smiling with 2 big eyes. I walked up to it and stared. Was he worth it? I asked without turning around. Minseo's voice faltered. You shouldn't be here. But I am. I finally turned to face her, and I'm not leaving until you say it. Say what? The truth. She shook her head. It's not that simple. It is. You used my body while I was sedated. You took my embryos. You built your whole life on something you stole from me. Minseo looked at the floor, her arms crossed over her stomach, like she could hold herself together through sheer will. I didn't mean for it to happen like that. Then how did you mean it to happen exactly? Walk me through the moral calculus. How does someone look at their best friend's grief, their loss, and think, yes, I'll take that too? I was desperate. Her voice cracked and something flickered in her eyes. Shame, maybe, but not nearly enough. I tried everything, Jinhua. I did. The surgeries, the hormones. Seo Jin's family. They were going to annul our marriage if I didn't produce a child. And you weren't even trying anymore. You gave up on the embryo. I postponed. My voice rose, then steadied. I was grieving the man I loved, the father of that child. I trusted you with everything. She looked away. You told the clinic you had my consent. I did what I had to. No, you did what you wanted. You didn't just take my child. You erased me. You told Hajun I died. You let him believe I was nothing. Minseo said nothing, but her fingers trembled where they clutched her arm. I let the silence hang between us like a blade. Then I said, quieter, he's smart, you know. Kind. He colors dragons blue when they're sad. He knows more about truth than you ever did. Her breath caught. I want him to know who he is, I said. I want him to know who I am. No, she said quickly, voice hardening. You can't. He's my son. He's our son. I carried him. I raised him. He calls me mom. Because you lied. Because I loved him. That stopped me, but only for a second. Then do what's best for him. Let him know the truth. A sound behind us made both our heads turn. The front door clicked open. Footsteps. Seo Jin's voice, dry, formal. I see we have company. Minseo stiffened. Her whole body seemed to shrink. Seo Jin stepped into the room like it belonged to him, coat still on, scarf hanging from his wrist. He looked at me with narrow eyes. I could tell he hadn't yet placed me, but the tension between Minseo and me was loud enough to rattle glass. Who is this? He asked. Minseo opened her mouth, then closed it again. So I answered for her. My name is Li Jinhua. You might know me as the woman your wife told everyone was dead. His eyes flicked toward Minseo, then back to me. I saw it then. The doubt, the beginning of a crack in his perfect world. That's impossible. I took a folded envelope from my coat pocket and placed it on the glass table with deliberate care. That's a DNA test. Your son is not your biological child. Seo Jin stared. What the hell are you playing at? She's not playing, Minseo said quietly. It's true. For a second, I thought he'd laugh, but he didn't. He stared at her like she was a stranger. You told me he was mine. You swore. I didn't know how to tell you. You lied for 3 years. I was afraid, she said. I thought you'd leave. He turned his gaze back to me like I was an equation he couldn't solve. And you? What do you want? I want acknowledgement, I said, of what she did. I want legal recognition that Hajun is my son. He barked a laugh. You want to take him? No. I want him to know the truth. I want to be in his life. You expect me to believe this? You have the test, I said. You're welcome to run another. Minseo reached for his arm. Please, don't do this here. Seojin pulled away. You told me she was dead, he said. I had to. No, he said, his voice lower now, more dangerous. You chose to. He turned to me again. You'll hear from our lawyers. I smiled. I look forward to it. I left before anyone else could speak. Left them standing there, fractured and reeling, two people who had thought the past was buried deep enough not to reach them. The next day, the headlines were inevitable. CEO's wife accused of fertility fraud, DNA test triggers, custody crisis. They didn't use my name. Yet. But they would. I'd waited long enough. I was done being a ghost. It started the way most storms do, quietly, impersonally, with cold language and careful hands. The court-appointed lab was neutral territory, sealed in white tiles and gray chairs, the kind of place where science is treated like religion and no one uses first names. The technician who administered the second DNA test didn't smile, and neither did Seojin. He didn't even look at me when we signed the forms, didn't acknowledge the boy sitting quietly between us with a juice box in hand and a dinosaur bandage on his knee. I wondered if he'd helped Hajun pick the flavor that morning, or if he'd merely given orders through a nanny. Minseo wasn't there. The court had warned her to stay away after the preliminary report was leaked to the media. Conflict of interest, they said. As if that was all this was, a conflict, an inconvenience, not the betrayal of a lifetime. The lab took 2 swabs, one from Hajun, who laughed nervously when they tickled the inside of his cheek, and one from Seojin, who endured the process with a clenched jaw and trembling fingers. I had to look away. Not because I pitied him, he was no victim here, but because there was something unbearably sad about a man discovering in real time that the one uncomplicated joy in his life might not be real. I signed the consent form with steady hands. I had no claim to him yet, not legally, but they allowed my name to be listed as an interested party pending confirmation. I wrote Li Jinhua in sharp, even strokes, underlining it once like I was reclaiming it in ink after years of silence. The results came back 2 days later. I already knew what they would say, but seeing it printed in sterile black letters gave the truth a strange new weight. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. The same document delivered to both legal teams confirmed what we all already knew. Hajun was not Seojin's son. The man whose name adorned every birth certificate and every medical form had no biological tie to the boy he called his heir. And Min Seo, the woman who once cried in my arms about how cruel her body was, had used mine to build her perfect lie. The news didn't stay private for long. Seojin's family leaked the report within 48 hours. I knew it had to be them because the language was too careful, too calculated. Sources close to the Kim family have confirmed an internal dispute involving reproductive misrepresentation and pending legal action. Reproductive misrepresentation, a euphemism so sterile, it almost made it sound accidental. The media took it from there. There were morning shows debating embryo consent laws, political commentators using the case to discuss IVF regulation, and every third-rate gossip blog speculating on how the other woman had come back from the dead. I stayed quiet. Let them guess. Let them claw for truth while I prepared for court. Min Seo disappeared from public view. Seo-jin filed for annulment instead of divorce, on grounds of fraud, deception, emotional injury. His lawyers called it identity sabotage, a phrase that echoed in the courtroom like something invented for thrillers. I didn't attend those hearings. I had my own legal path to carve. Custody petitions, DNA affidavits, witness declarations. It was exhausting work, but clean, clinical. And for once, I was in control of the process. I saw Hajun again under supervised visitation. It was a strange arrangement, cold and unfamiliar, set up in a facility designed to look like a preschool. Bright walls, plush chairs, Lego sets, and juice boxes. A therapist sat a polite distance away, pen in hand. I hated the sterility of it, the artificial setup, but I did what I was told. I followed the script. I introduced myself as a friend. He didn't remember me at first, not until I offered him another red Danish. Then he squinted and said, "You're the lady from the Dragon Place." I smiled. "I am." He took the pastry without hesitation. "Did you come to draw dragons with me this time?" "No," I said gently, kneeling beside him. "I came to see you. Just you." The therapist watched from behind her clipboard. I ignored her. We talked about school, about his drawings. He showed me a picture he'd made the night before. A woman in a blue coat holding hands with a child under a red umbrella. The proportions were awkward, but the tenderness was unmistakable. "Is that your mom?" I asked. He shook his head. "That's Ginny." I blinked. "She's from a dream," he added. "I have it sometimes. She sings." I didn't speak for a long moment. Then I said, "What does she sing?" He furrowed his brow in thought, then softly hummed a lullaby I hadn't heard in years. The one my mother used to sing when I was little. The one I used to hum under my breath in the hospital when Jun Seok was dying. The one I must have whispered in that clinic room when I thought no one was listening. I pressed a hand to my chest. "You're very brave, Hajun." He looked at me with a seriousness that didn't suit his age. "You remind me of someone," he said. "Who?" "Myself," he said, then giggled. "But older." The therapist smiled faintly at that. She didn't write it down. By the end of the hour, he was resting his head on my knee while coloring a blue sky around a dragon that was no longer sad. Later that week, I received an offer, not a settlement, not an apology, a proposal. Min Seo's lawyer sent a message requesting a closed-door mediation. She was prepared to relinquish parental control if certain terms were met. Specifically, that I drop the malpractice lawsuit against the clinic and issue no further public statements about the nature of the embryo theft. In other words, she wanted me to disappear again, quietly, legally this time, and I didn't respond. Instead, I scheduled a press interview. They tried to prep me with talking points. I ignored all of them. I didn't need a PR strategy. I didn't need spin. I had the truth. Sitting across from the reporter, I wore a navy blouse and tied my hair back. Nothing dramatic. I spoke clearly, slowly. No rage, just reality. My name is Li Jinhua. 3 years ago, I went to a clinic to undergo an embryo preservation procedure using my late fiancé's genetic material. While I was sedated, my best friend, Minseo Kim, used forged documents to claim my embryos as her own. She had them implanted without my consent. The result of that procedure is a child. A beautiful, kind, brilliant little boy. And he is mine. I paused, breathing in. Let the camera capture the weight of it. She raised him, yes, but not with honesty, not with love that respects truth. I am not here to erase her. I am here to reclaim myself. It aired the following night. The story became real for millions in one breath. Not just a scandal, not just a lawsuit, a woman, a child, a name, mine. The courtrooms were never as dramatic as they appeared in the media. No gavels, no shouting matches, no last-minute objections that changed the course of history. The truth moved slowly here, grinding forward with the sound of shuffled papers and murmured procedural language. I sat behind a polished wooden table, surrounded by lawyers, experts, and shadows of myself I hadn't met yet. All of us waited to find out who I would be allowed to become. It was called a custody modification hearing, though what we were modifying was more than paperwork. It was reality. Minseo's legal team had made a new offer the week before. Joint custody, supervised visitation for both parties, shared medical decision-making. It was the best I could hope for without a prolonged trial that would shatter Hajun in the middle. And I had told Rena very plainly that I wouldn't be the one to break him. I hadn't seen Minseo in person since the press interview. She sat across the room, eyes hollowed and face thinner than before. Her hair pulled back so tightly, I wondered if she had done it to punish herself. Or maybe she just didn't want anything soft left on her. When the judge entered, she stood with the precision of someone who had rehearsed a regret. The hearing was brief. Neither of us objected to the terms. The therapist had advised minimal disruption to Ha-jun's routines. His counselor recommended staggered transitions, slow introductions, building trust. The language in the decree was cautious, clinical, designed to protect him from the kind of damage you couldn't erase with apologies. And yet, when the order was finalized, I felt something hard in my chest loosen. Not joy, not victory, just breath. A beginning. When we walked out into the hallway, I didn't expect Minseo to stop, but she did. "You didn't destroy me," she said softly, not looking at me, "even though you could have." I looked at her for a long moment. "You destroyed yourself. I just stopped cleaning up after you." She blinked, but didn't argue. "Why didn't you take full custody?" she asked after a pause. "Because he loves you," I said, "even if he doesn't understand what you did." Her shoulders shook then, barely, but enough. "I loved him too," she whispered, "more than anything." "I know," I said, and I meant it. "But love isn't ownership." She turned and walked away before I could say anything else, and I didn't stop her. The first time Hajun came to stay with me overnight, he brought a stuffed cat and 3 pairs of socks, none of which matched. He wore a backpack twice his size and dragged it up the front steps himself, insisting he didn't need help. "I'm almost 6, he said proudly, as I unlocked the door to my apartment. "I can do everything." I let him think he could. It was easier than explaining how much I had missed. My place wasn't big, just 2 bedrooms and a balcony that caught the evening sun. But I had spent weeks getting it ready. I painted one room in soft gray, added glow-in-the-dark stars to the ceiling, and let him choose the bedding from a catalog. He picked dinosaurs and constellations. When I showed it to him, he didn't say anything for a long time. He just stepped into the middle of the room and looked up at the fake stars. "You made this for me?" "I did." He touched the pillowcase, fingers slow and reverent. "Do I sleep here now?" "You can," I said, "whenever you want." That night, he asked if I would stay in the room until he fell asleep. I don't always fall asleep fast, he warned. Sometimes I think too many things. What kind of things? He hesitated. Like, is it okay to have two moms? My throat tightened. I didn't answer right away. I sat on the edge of his bed, smoothing the blanket over his legs. It's okay to have people who love you, I said, even if they don't always get everything right. He was quiet for a while, then, you didn't go away, did you? I turned to him slowly, and what do you mean? I used to think you were in a dream, he said, but now you're real. So maybe you were here the whole time, just hiding. I reached out and brushed his hair back from his forehead. I was never far. He didn't ask why I had gone or why no one had told him about me. Maybe he was too young to ask, or maybe some part of him already knew. Children understand silence more deeply than we give them credit for. That night, he fell asleep with his hand wrapped around mine. I stayed there until morning. Weeks passed like that. Quietly, slowly, with routines built from scratch. We read stories. We made pancakes. He taught me how to draw robots, and I taught him how to fold paper cranes. There were tantrums and accidents and late-night phone calls from Minseo when he cried for her. I didn't stop him from loving her. I just tried to show him it was okay to love me too. One Sunday morning, we sat on the balcony watching the rain turn the city into watercolor. Do I have a dad? He asked suddenly. I didn't flinch. You did, I said gently. His name was Jun Seok. Is he gone? Yes. Forever? Yes, I said again. But he loved you. He wanted you to exist, even before you were born. He leaned his head on my arm. I think I dream about him sometimes. I think he'd like that. Did he sing too? Yes, I whispered. He used to sing badly, but he tried. Hajun giggled. You sing nice. I kissed the top of his head. I only sing for you. The final court session was procedural, an update on the shared custody terms, progress reports from the therapist, and a notation that both parties had complied with visitation requirements. The judge glanced up once and asked if there were any objections or modifications. Seojin didn't show. He had quietly ceded all paternal rights. Officially, it was framed as emotional duress and irreconcilable misrepresentation. I knew the truth. He could not look at the boy without seeing the lie he had sent no goodbye. Minseo sat at the far end of the room, clutching her notepad like a lifeline. She looked smaller than she used to. Not broken, but shrunken, like a person caught in her own ruins. I looked at her and didn't feel hate anymore, only distance. The judge signed the final decree and handed it to the clerk. It was done. Outside the courthouse, Hajun took my hand. Can I call you something? He asked. Of course, I said. Anything you want. He looked thoughtful. What was your name before? I knelt beside him. Jinhua. He repeated it once, carefully. Jinhua. Do you want to call me that? He shook his head. No. My heart stuttered. Then what? He leaned closer, grinned, and whispered, Mom. I closed my eyes just for a moment. Let the words sit on my skin like sunlight. I had thought the fight would end in a courtroom, that justice would be a verdict, a piece of paper, but it wasn't. It was a voice, a choice, his.